What up, YouTube land? Dan here from Geekcast Radio doing another comic book haul video. This is where I go through my recent pickups, giving my thoughts and opinions on what I'm going to read. I don't do any full reviews. Most of these books I haven't read yet, but I have been doing something new where I've been ranking these on my least excited to most excited. This is a smaller haul, and most of them probably will be moving forward, trying to cut down on some of my books to kind of get the essential things. Like, for example, I dropped Deadpool this week because it just wasn't really clicking with me. But I do have some books. Also had some books that I didn't pick up the previous week, so some old and new here. And also kind of a great week because we got a lot of free stuff going on, starting with DC Nation number 5, I think. This is a great magazine to pick up. It kind of reminds me of what Wizard was back in the day, having all the great interviews. I know they're talking about how they are having a series now for The Batman Who Laughs, which is fine, I guess. And Jeff Johns talking about doing a new Shazam series. I'm just not a huge fan of the Batman Who Laughs as much as most people. He's a fine character, but I thought he would come and go. But they're really, really keeping that character around. I guess he's going to be that one of those staying things from DC's metal. But we'll see. Also, Marvel Not to Be Undone is like we see that, and we'll try to do it ourselves, as is often the case with comic books. They have their own Marvel Universe that came out this week, which is also free. Giving some ads on the new upcoming X-Men Uncanny X-Men relaunch, which is $7.99, which still kind of bugs me. But what's kind of cool is that they're talking about the X-Man. Nate Gray is going to be playing a big part of this series. And I know some people were hesitant because it's, Nate Gray is not a great character by any stretch of the imagination. Personally, I don't think there's anything such as a bad character. I think any character can be made interesting if put in the right hands, and even a great character can have a bad comic if not with the right person. So hopefully they can make him out to something, and he does have potential for being a cool character. He's kind of weird, and they look like they went completely Alan Moore with him with the long hair and beard. So we'll see where that goes. So I'm excited but hesitant regarding the upcoming Uncanny X-Men relaunch, just because $7.99 is a lot of money for a #1 issue. It's putting a lot on that first issue to go through. I also picked up some back issues because it's more of a lighter week for me. Picked up Daredevil number 209, or 299, I should say. I just enjoyed that cover. I've been in a Daredevil mood as of late, especially with the new trailer dropping not too long ago. So I've been picking up some of the Daredevil, so it's $2.99. And also picked this one up, which is $200. So kind of the other end of the spectrum, but also kind of just like that cover as well. Another comic I picked up wasn't free, but almost free. 35 cents, might as well be free nowadays. This is the Battlestar Galactica comic put out by Dynamite. They did something similar with their Superpowers book, where they're putting out these quarter or cheap issues. I've never read a Battlestar Galactica comic. I've never watched an episode of the old or new Battlestar Galactica, but I thought I'd give it a shot, take a look at it, and see if it's any good or not. So we'll see. What's kind of funny is that I used to dismiss licensed books, but licensed books have been doing quite good, at least for Dynamite and a few others. So, and I'll talk about some of them coming up today. So there's that. Starting with my actual books, we have the Magic Order number 4. I've been liking the series okay. I felt like it's been a book that feels more like a spec script than a really complete narrative. Some of the characters have been really ill-defined for a great extent of this, with this only being, I think it's a 6-issue series, or at least that's what I thought, but it might be going on continuously. The Olivier Coipel art has been fantastic. He does some great work. There has been some impressive imagery throughout, but I just felt the story as a whole has just been kind of okay for the most part. A book that came out last week, but I'm picking up this week, The Punisher number 2. I've enjoyed Matthew Rosenberg's run on The Punisher since he took it over with the War Machine, and now getting back to a more straightforward Punisher story, although the last issue had some major developments for sure, as we are seeing more of a worldwide Frank going after Hydra because of what happened during the Secret Empire. And this will be picking this up. I've been loving the art. I think it's been okay. There's some of the face rendering was off last issue. Like Frank Castle had 4 different looks throughout the book, but overall I think it was a really solid book, and I tend to really like what Matthew Rosenberg does as a writer. Another book that came out last week that I'm just getting now because they didn't order it in time was Friendo. This is coming from Vault Comics, and I didn't know much about this honestly, except that it's coming from Vault Comics, and I've really enjoyed what Vault has been doing. I've read most of their stuff from the library in trade paperback form, so I thought I'd start with a new series and see how much I enjoyed it. Like, I just finished Stalag X. That was pretty good. Deep Roots and a few other books that they've done I've enjoyed. They kind of run the gamut of different types of books. To me, it's like if you take Image and Vertigo and kind of combine them into one, somewhat of what you get with Vault. And I really liked Heathen. That was like the first thing I read. It was more of a fantasy tale about these Valkyrie. So hopefully Friendo will keep up with that. So I actually heard there was actually 2 Vault books that came out last week. I actually heard that was good, but there was another one that came out that was better. So we'll see. Maybe we'll pick that one up later as well. A series I've been enjoying. It's been a lot of fun. It's Cosmic Ghost Rider number 4. This is the penultimate issue. I think next issue is the last issue. I'll be honest, I've actually read this one already, and I have a review of it or coming out shortly on Comic Crusaders. And I'll just say this, like, it is probably the best issue of the series thus far. I don't want to open it because there's not major spoilers in this, but this has been really just a fun, enjoyable series. It's been super silly, and this changes that a bit. It's rather sharp tonal shifts. This issue, things get a little bit more serious. It doesn't feel off-putting compared to what came before, but it actually feels like the first issue that has actual stakes, and honestly kind of makes what came before even better. So if you're one that thought maybe this was a little too light or just a little bit too out there, I think this brings it back to earth a little bit. So I am wondering how they're going to finish this off with only 1 issue left, but I pretty much trust Donny Cates because he hasn't steered me wrong yet. Speaking of licensed books, I have this licensed book from James Bond Origin number 2. I enjoyed the first issue. This is coming from Jeff Parker, art by Bob Q. Bob Q, I think, is, I've only read a few things. This is really the second comic I've read from him, and I talked to Jeff Parker at the Baltimore Comic Con because I got issue number 1 signed, and he was talking about Bob Q and how amazed he was and how quickly he's taking to the comic book world. He came from the world of video games, and his storytelling technique is really solid for someone who's just, really in his early stages as a comic book creator. And I'll agree to that. There's another book I'm about to talk about where I think he's kind of done his best work thus far. But what this does is tell the tale of James Bond during World War II, when he's really a teenager and he's at the home front as the war is raging. And last issue dealt a lot with the bombings in London, and I think this will kind of take off from there. So I don't know how far it's going to go up to the life of James Bond, if each issue is going to be self-contained or it's this continuous story. I haven't really read that much. The last series for James Bond, The Body, which was done by Alex Cott, each issue was really self-contained. They did have a through line throughout, but each issue kind of looked at a specific portion of what makes James Bond, the body, the heart, the mind, and by the end of it, it all kind of came together, but you could pick up each issue by itself and enjoy it well enough. I don't know if that'll continue with this, and Dynamite's been putting out a lot of great stuff when it comes to James Bond, and I think if you're someone who maybe hasn't loved the movies, or the fact there hasn't been a movie in forever, and who knows when the next one's coming out, check out some of their James Bond books. The Warren Ellis series was really great. The Hammerhead series was great. Some of them haven't been as good. There was an original graphic novel, which was, I think, Casino Royale, which was okay. It was more of an adaptation than a new addition to the series. And even some of the one-offs, like there was a Moneypenny one-off as well. Again, showing Dynamite, I'll be honest, I tend to dismiss previously because I had so many licensed books. But when you put creators on it that I really respect, like a Jeff Parker, who's not a gigantic name in the world of comics, but he's had a pretty solid career when you look at things he's done. Like, I love X-Men First Class, for example, that he wrote, and he did Batman 66. And I'm glad he's getting an opportunity with this book. And it's kind of cool seeing an artist like Bob Q, like I mentioned, that I think is about to break out. And getting to my most anticipated book of the week, I talked about licensed books, and it is a licensed book. And it's not because I have any past experience with this license, it's because of the creative team behind it. And it's a Lone Ranger number 1. I'm really anticipating this because it's written by Mark Russell, who I've pretty much enjoyed everything he's done. He's the writer of the Flintstones. He wrote Snagglepuss Chronicles. He did some recent shorts for Superman. He also wrote Judge Dredd Under Siege earlier this year, which was pretty good. I think it was a good an opportunity for him to kind of step into the world of superhero-like stories, and now he's doing a Western. I do really enjoy Westerns. I have some experience with the Lone Ranger because my dad was really into it, but it was something I was a huge fan of. But I'm kind of excited to see where this goes. And this is also drawn by Bob Q. And the lettering is done by Hassan, or I forget his exact name, the guy who does a YouTube channel, Strip Panel Naked. He's doing the lettering in this as well. And I've read this already too, but I knew it was my most anticipated coming in, and I really dug it a great deal. And it's a good blending of kind of building this world around the Lone Ranger and dealing a lot with the world of the Old West being tamed in a way, and that frontier kind of going away as you have these men trying to lay claim to it legally and illegally, and the Lone Ranger there trying to kind of circumvent that from happening. And it's I think a good way to approach some of the issues that were dealt with at the time that people kind of don't realize, just the political nature behind things, just how corrupt the world was at that time. Not that things have gotten much better, I guess you'd say, but it also has great just cowboy action, and I don't want to show more than this, but again, Bob Q is, I think, I want to get to one page. It doesn't really spoil anything, but I think just showcases that, like, this is the guy who knows not only how to showcase, like, the huge action sequences and things like that, but the cool moments, and it's this page right here on my left and your right. I just love that page. It just showing the Lone Ranger traveling, and with it's just fantastic to look at. Great way to kind of show time displacement as well. So if you're a person who maybe doesn't, we had that movie a few years ago, which was pretty awful, but I think this does it more justice. It feels more akin to what you would read at the time. There's been a couple volumes of Lone Ranger. I actually almost picked up in the dollar bin today. I found some of the old Lone Ranger books from mid-2000s, I think, but I ended up not picking them up. So I also really love that cover. They had a Mike Allred cover, but my shop didn't have it. They just had the main book. I think I was one of the few people that picked it up, but I highly advise picking it up. I'm excited that Mark Russell's really kind of expanding what he's doing. He's able to kind of take his ability to inject sharp social commentary into a story, and doing that, but in a way that feels right for this time period. Also, the language in this is fantastic, utilizing a lot of the classic colloquialisms of the time. It's almost like Shakespearean-esque in the way that they kind of turn a phrase and really inject that into this book to increase that authenticity. It makes it feel like it's more than just an opportunity to cash in a name. There's a lot of work putting into this book. So the Lone Ranger #1. Surprised, if you told me a year ago that I would be excited for a Lone Ranger book, and not only excited but also really much enjoying it, I would think you're crazy. But hey, times are changing. That's how things go. That's it for this week. Like I said, a very light comic book haul for me. But if you want more comic book hauls, check out a haul I just did a few weeks earlier this week as I went through Baltimore Comic Con and picked up many books. So I'm still kind of recovering from that because it was a busy weekend, and next week looks like it's a little more back to normal. Some major books coming out next week, like Avengers, and Catwoman's coming back, Superman. There's some books I am teetering on also dropping. Like, I don't know if I want to keep with Catwoman because Joelle Jones is no longer going to be doing the art, and she was really the biggest reason art-wise why I was reading that book. So I don't know if I'll keep with it, but we'll see. And Superman in Action Comics, I've been going back and forth with. Like, it's just like, I enjoy it, but I don't know. It feels incomplete in a way. It's getting better, but still, it's just like every time it gets better, then I read an issue with it that I don't like. It's like, I don't know. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. But we'll see. All right. Well, that's enough for me for this week. Just remember, comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. Until next time, thanks for watching.